Welcome to Go For Side Effects. I'm your host, Kevin Simon. Y'all know my co-host, John. John, how you doing?
Hey, everybody, doing good, brother.
Y'all know Wade. Wade, how you doing?
Absolutely fantastic.
And Linda is a new member. How are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you all?
She is with Sit Happens Dog Training LLC. I said sit. I said sit, everybody. I don't want to hear it. All right. And so tonight is a really, really special episode for us. And this is important to me because we have three gentlemen, Sergeant Grass, Major Johnson, and Major Abear. Abear has ALS. He is with his wife and he is with his dad. And they are... how would you say it? Preparing for with
testimonials.
Yeah. And so the introduction we have is, from 1996, 33 years ago. It's from C-SPAN, and I'm going to thank Jason for sending me this, because after I watched it, I was ready to throw stuff against the wall. I don't know about y'all, but it's really important. I think we go back in history so we don't repeat history, because when I was 26 years old, I didn't pay attention to C-SPAN. I don't even know if I had cable. I was a single guy. I was a dad. My son living across different state lines and stuff because his mom was in the Air Force. I didn't watch C-SPAN. I watched local news. Local news didn't have what we're about to play on. And a lot of people have not heard this. Some have, some were there. But I think this is important for everybody to listen to it. And I really appreciate these three gentlemen and even four gentlemen and the wife. I really appreciate them for being able to do this for us. I just wish that we would have known it a lot longer, because I just found this not even like a week or two ago. And I sent it to Wade. Wade has seen this before. Linda, this is your first time seeing it, right?
Yeah, my first time.
And John?
Now, FYI to our viewers, I have not watched the entire thing, but FYI, we missed out. So Linda is an Air Force veteran, Navy, or obviously Kevin's Navy, and the other two of us are Army, FYI. So people know that we're all Gulf War veterans. So that's why this is pretty mind-boggling to hear this.
All right. And so this is, I'm going to go ahead and let's get this started, because I got about 6 areas where I concentrated on so everybody can understand, because, and I just think it's important. This is important. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get this thing going. Y'all ready?
Yep.
Do it.
And would want to make sure that for the record, it's clear that this has really been an undertaking of the entire committee. And Mr. Towns, the ranking member, has been a proactive, equal partner in this process. I have no problem giving him the gavel at times, because this has been, in fact, a bipartisan undertaking to get at the truth. And the bottom line is we're looking to properly diagnose, treat, and fairly compensate veterans who need to be compensated. And before calling our witnesses, I will point out that we will be having another hearing, our 7th hearing, on January 21st. At that time, Dr. Kenneth Kaiser, Assistant Secretary for Veterans Affairs, head of the Healthcare for Veterans Affairs, will be coming to testify, as will Bernard Rosker, who is the Special Assistant for Gulf War Illnesses in the Office of the Secretary of Defense. So we will be having that hearing on January 21st of next month. At this time, I'm going to be, the committee is privileged to bring to testify Major Michael Johnson from the U.S. Army, Sergeant George Grass, U.S. Marine Corps, and Major Randy Hebert, who is accompanied U.S. Marine Corps, all of whom were in the Persian Gulf. Mr. Hebert is accompanied by his father, Lloyd Hebert, and his wife, Kim. And we will be having 3 testimonies, but in response to, I believe, Mr. Hebert, you'll be reading the testimony, and both of you will be helping your son, your husband, respond to, helping us understand his response to questions. Since you all are there, I'm going to ask those of you who can, including Mr. Hebert, the father, as well as Kim, his wife, to stand and be sworn in as well. And Mr. Hebert, if you can't stand, we understand. It's nice.
He was able to stand. And I wanted to bring this as the introduction because this was done in 96. And they want to get down to the bottom of Gulf War illness. But there's a few things that kind of shocked me in this video I guess in the very beginning is that a lot of the people who were there, it was packed. There was a lot of freaking people there. Did y'all notice that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, it was a full house.
And so a little bit, let's talk about Major Hebert. Major Hebert has ALS, and I didn't do his open testimony on this because it takes a little while, but we will have this whole thing up after we're done with this, so everybody can go watch the full 3 hours of the Senate hearing. And so, John, you got anything you want to add?
No, just keep in mind the gentleman who's speaking, his father is to that gentleman's to his right, his wife is to the gentleman's left. He cannot speak. You can pick up words here and there, but his father is the one that recites verbatim what his son wrote down for him to speak for it, for him. So,
Right, Wade?
No, I just think, it's a good prelude to, like we discussed before, they knew something was going on. And I think these 3 were, kind of getting the door open, getting the ball rolling.
Right. Linda?
Sorry. Distracted.
all good.
So no, I had someone just walking in, so he's distracting me. So what was the question? Sorry.
Like, with them being up there and they're doing their testimonies and everything, it's just amazing how many people were in there. And
Well,
I don't know if they were Desert Storm vets or if they were press or who it was.
they're probably just government, maybe people from the VA, but from what I've seen with, if you watch any even C-SPAN or any meetings, congressional hearings or whatever, you have basically the White House is full of different officials, and you see those rooms just full. So there's senators, Congress, VA officials, or even all, there's multiple people, but there could have been supporters there and family veterans in the back too. But you'll see that that's kind of normal, I believe, with any kind of meeting like that. I'm just disappointed that I've never seen it before.
Yeah, I'm
never even heard of it.
Too.
I wasn't even aware of him.
And that's why I want to get to the next part, because this one to me, this was one that caught my attention at the very beginning to really start listening to it. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started on this.
all of you being here today and giving us the information that you have. We appreciate it. It seems to be that a common thread running through all of your testimony is that you had difficulty communicating, or lack of success, if you like, communicating your experience to your higher ups. Now, it seems fairly obvious that if one wants to understand the problems associated with the illnesses that our soldiers are experiencing, the more information that we have, the better we can deal with the problem. That's true for any problem. It took 5 years before the Pentagon finally acknowledged that our soldiers were exposed to chemical agents. In your judgment, given your particular difficulties in being able to communicate your own experiences to the higher ups, why do you think it took 5 years before the Pentagon finally acknowledged what you have told us today and what many other people have told us?
Go ahead, Wade. I'm going to let you have this one.
My aching ass.
I guess that's kind of what we were talking before. Desert Storm. I'm not a big one on calling it Gulf War. It's Desert Storm, Desert Shield, Desert Storm. It was our war. But anyway, in my opinion, it was a makeup. It was a hoorah. Well, we got the celebration that the Vietnam veterans did not. They deserved, but did not get. And we were spiking the football at the time. And the government wasn't going to let that go. We were the glory boys and women who went over there, did a job, and came home. And for them to admit that they screwed up, and now we have all these sick troops. Now the government, they have a whole brand new Agent Orange all over again. They're not going to admit that, come out and just say, "Oops."
I'll tell you what gets me, and I don't know if this gets anybody else as much as it gets me on this. How many years have we been told it's all in our heads? How many years have we been told?
No.
Really?
Oh, right,
That's
correct.
the beginning. That's the beginning.
And how many times have we been told that y'all were not exposed to anything, or none of that stuff? You have Bernie Sanders sitting right here 33 years ago saying that the Pentagon admits that we're exposed to chemical agents.
5 years ago, he said, this was in 96. So he's saying that they knew from the get-go. Did y'all catch that?
Right.
I mean, I know you did. He said 5 years ago, that was when it happened, and now they're saying, it's deny, deny, deny. And here we are. That's why this is so important to all of us. We got video evidence right here, folks.
So what really got me is that they went into detail. The people that are up on the front in the hearing up there, the representatives, I don't know why they, Bernie, and then there was Boyer is another politician that's up there, and they're all very supportive. You could hear in their verbiage that they're very supportive of this hearing. Maybe they're the ones that called the hearing. I'm not sure. I don't know all that. But right away, this was on December 10th. This was the 5th hearing that they had. December 10th, 1996. This is the 5th hearing on this particular subject. They're talking about chemical warfare, chemical and biological. They're talking not only chemical, what they were exposed to, but also biological. They're talking about what we were instructed to take if there was Scud missiles come in, retaliation, whatever that was, the stuff that they were throwing at us. Nerve agents, blister agents, Scud attacks, dead animals with no bugs around them. And then they went into they're talking about operator error, which was huge. Operator error, a lot of them were blaming. So there was the communication between, so when Sergeant or Major Aber, when he first got exposed, there was radio contact saying, is there something going on? No. Then they said, yes, there is something going on. So this lack of communication they're talking about, it doesn't matter if there's lack of communication between the between on the radio contact or not. It's the fact that they were there protecting, they were subjected to whatever we're subjected to over in the Middle East. by the VA's bidding, by the Pentagon telling us where to go. It doesn't matter if there's a mess up with the
right.
higher ups telling them what are, it's the fact that we're there and we're doing the work. So that's not even an argument to blame. Oh, the higher ups didn't tell you that there was something that you were exposed to. You need to put on your mask or whatever. That doesn't matter. The fact is that we were exposed, that we're there. So
Yeah, and-
this blame game is what really bothered me the most. And that's if they're insinuating.
And it was back and forth. The back and forth is the blame game of the machines were all faulty and everything. And
Or the lack of radio communication saying, oh, was there, are we in MOP 4? Well, nope. Oh, yeah, we are. That doesn't matter. The fact that they got exposed because they were there, that's what matters.
no, I agree. Anybody want to ask something before I go to the next one?
Nope, go for it.
So,
Sorry. I answered for everybody. I'm anxious.
all right, now we're going to go into the next one.
One of the frustrating things that many of us and you and the country are dealing with is that more information seems to be eking out month after month. Is it your judgment that up to this point, there has been full disclosure on the magnitude of possible chemical exposures, or do you think we're going to be hearing more in the coming weeks and months and perhaps years? Who would like the Major?
His opinion? In his opinion, we'll be finding out a lot more information over the next several months. And there'll be many more veterans that become ill because of the low-level chemical exposure.
We have seen over the last
We have seen over the last 3 years
many numbers of veterans, the number of veterans
we have seen the number of veterans
who are ill
increase
dramatically.
dramatically.
Thank you very much. Did either of you gentlemen want to comment on that briefly?
Sir, I think that we will see in the months to come more information being presented. That exposure to chemical agents is possible that it actually happened. I think more veterans will present more information on their personal experiences during that time period, both during and after the ground campaign.
Thank you, Major.
He's correct. he is definitely correct. And I mean, I can't imagine what Hebert and Hebert's family what was going through. For him to go up and testify for each and every one of us is just amazing. But he was right. He literally, there's one point in one of the videos, and I couldn't really get it up there because they kept bleeping it out. And I think he was getting frustrated, it seemed like. And maybe some words came out he wasn't supposed to say, so they bleeped it out. But he's right. Over the months, over the years, we're going to start seeing more people coming up with having problems. I mean, all of us had issues, but we didn't know about this.
Yeah, and that was interesting to me that he said that then, because he's right. I think there's different levels of it, and I think the exposure comes in. Maybe it gets worse with age, but all the symptoms that he was talking about, it has gotten worse for me. And in 2014, which would have been what, 20 years after the fact, is when things got so bad for me, I reached out to my private doctor, insurance doctor, and then that's when I didn't even know there was a connection. But you remember the last time I talked to you guys and I told you about there's one time we got sick and I thought it was they gave us bad ice. I'm wondering if it had nothing to do with the bad ice they gave us, that it was because it was he's talking about vomiting, diarrhea, and that's everything that we had, and that's what everyone was in these tent hospitals at that point. So I'm wondering.
We were all being told it was everything but what the obvious was. Our alarms that they employed, they handmade alarms. We've talked about this multiple times on this podcast. Everything the gentlemen are talking about, how it showed up over years. I've used the terminology. It was a slow burn. I knew something wasn't right. You know, when I was in theater and then when I left, we're young. You know, we're like, we kind of blow it off. And then it just gets a little worse, a little worse, and a little worse. Some people, higher concentration, like Wade has mentioned in previous videos. He was right there. I don't know how my brother there is still sitting there. I said that before. He was at Camisea, which is the name of the location where a munitions dump was blown up by our own people intentionally, and it's like, how is he even sitting, with us? So.
Yeah, I agree. Wait.
No, and I think that's kind of what they've found out over the years, just reading that, getting ready for tonight, just reading newspaper articles from back to 1995, what they thought it was then. And honestly, back then, they actually, to me, reading, they actually had a decent handle on what they suspected, because that's exactly where we're at today. Either that, they sure the hell don't know today anymore.
Right.
They know.
In 1996, I read an article in 1996, they sent out 5,000 letters to people they thought were exposed to. And then it didn't start climbing until 2012. And that's when it really started taking off every year, because vets were coming forward. But let's go ahead and get to the next one. I have no idea what just happened. Bear with me. Here it is.
My husband is still on active duty, sir.
So the man got home and survived.
So the VA has.
Very much. Let me just say that in conclusion then, that Mr. Chairman, one of the items that has become clear through some of the other testimony is that we have to be concerned that notwithstanding these official pronouncements, that care from the VA be afforded to each and every veteran that presents himself and is possibly been exposed to low-level contamination. And finally, I just think that the Congress, even though this subcommittee's been very aggressive, that it's clear to me that the public should demand that we actually be even more aggressive on this matter in the 105th Congress, not just this subcommittee, and not just hearing from people like the people here, but higher ups. And I know that we want the DOD to come forward, but I would also indicate that there were people in upper echelons of this government during this period of time, like Secretary Cheney and others who I think in Schwarzkopf and Colin Powell, who we should attempt to understand whether the major is correct or not. And that is whether or not on day one, there was information that could have aided in providing adequate care and knowledge about this. And I think that we should be as serious in that investigation as this Congress has been looking into other matters of interest to the Congress. We've been very aggressive on some matters, and I'd like to see our chairman have this subcommittee's inquiry be expanded in a much more aggressive manner, because I think this subcommittee's carried the weight, but there's more here that we should examine. Thank you.
I thank the gentleman.
Now, reason I brought that up right there is because he was right. I do believe these guys sitting up here really do care. I really do. I do believe that, because the questions that they were asking and the stuff that they were trying to come up with. But the biggest problem is the DOD stonewalled it. I'll be perfectly honest. I think it's in the next clip I may be doing exactly what it says. The VA and the DOD, and none of them were talking with each other. The DOD did not come out and give all the information it should have to Congress, to the Senate, to this panel, and to the VA. So, but we're 30 plus years later, and I felt like it was swept under the rug until like 2014, 15, 16, 17, as it's going more and more. I felt like they would talk about it, sweep it under the rug. Talk about it, sweep it under the rug.
Yeah, I mean, we've all seen it. We all know we all have our legitimate reasoning for understanding why it was slipped under the rug. Because the bottom line is it costs money to take care of us by acknowledging it. So things have to be, they don't want to admit to it, because not only has it affected us, it has affected our families, and that's a whole nother ordeal. But
no, right. But this is important. This is important because he even said it. Everybody out there, even the civilians, they should be knowledgeable about what happened to us over there. He said it, came out of his mouth. And I agree with it, but it wasn't knowledgeable at that time for all of us. I know Linda wants to say something. I can see it in my eyes.
Oh, I always have something to say. Well, I mean, I was taking notes. I only got through about a third of it. But they were asking, where are the logs? So they had these logs on, handwritten logs on all the incidents that were going on. They all disappeared. Why did we get so many inoculations? That was another question. And they were calling it a syndrome. And that's what Major Airbear said. He said, this is not a syndrome. This is an illness. I'm so thankful for him. I'm sure that he is no longer with us. I'm sure ALS is very aggressive. Just very thankful for him. But they were talking about anthrax, and they were talking about botulism. They were, I think we're thinking deep, like why? The DOD knows, the VA knows, the Pentagon knows. They did not contact us. They waited for us to contact them. There were people that had it worse. I mean, look what happened to Major Airbear. I mean, he couldn't even talk, and that was 5 years afterward. He got it. He got it. So he was exposed so dramatically and right away. But I think what it is, and I'm not a paranoid person, but I do believe that is over time, people pass away for other reasons or for the reasons, and it is a way to safeguard paying everyone out money that the VA. I mean, the VA is not going to come up and say, "Hey, we owe you money because this is what happened to you." They're waiting for us, of course, to go to them, and the more people that don't go to them, then the less money they have to pay out. Then people pass away for different reasons.
Okay, but then
you know what I mean? So the odds are that, it's coming to a head now. The people that are still here, and we're young, right? We're 53. I'm 53. I was 19 when this happened. But imagine the people that were 30, 40, 50 years old that were exposed at the time. They're probably not with us anymore. So it's just a matter of timing, I'm sure, for the VA saying,
well,
throwing their hands up like we don't know anything.
That's great. That I agree with you on that. I totally agree 100%. So for these guys sitting there, going in front of the Senate panel committee, whatever it was back then, and telling them what happened, what was going on, giving them the information. Was that, I guess, to me, was it for show that, not for them guys, but for the congressmen or senators sitting up there, was that for show to act like that they care? You know, it's you know, but people can say both ways, yes and no. You know, some yes, some no, I guess. I mean, I don't get
the way I heard it in their voices at the introductions at the very beginning, when you listen to it, you can tell on their tone that they do care. And they're the reasons, I think they were the reason that these meetings were even happening. Were the ones that were up
to the people
on that board.
And to the people that don't know, the veterans or the active duty individuals that are sitting before this panel, those men were in something that's called a Fox vehicle. It is a vehicle that sole purpose is to determine chemicals in the air, and they were in those vehicles or in close proximity to these vehicles. They were there. That's why this is so, I mean, we've all been there, but they were in the very piece of equipment that was tested and acknowledged by our government to do what it's meant to do. And so they're speaking from firsthand experience in a vehicle that's total purpose, again, was to detect chemicals. So if
correct.
I don't think that.
And they're experts. They said that they were experts in chemical, biological warfare. All of these men were.
Yeah.
That's what they went to school for. That's their background.
Yes.
Back to what you and Linda were saying about the representatives and senators. At that time, we had a senator here. His name was Senator Harkin, and he was very, very active in helping veterans. I testified with several other local veterans a couple different times for hearings for him. And I do believe, if I'm not even mistaken, that there was something that he submitted a Harkin report. They did a survey of Iowa veterans back then, and that was all sponsored and promoted by him. So yes, I believe they care. But then all of a sudden, Harkin retires. Okay, so new representation. Someone else comes in. They don't just pick up the ball where the other guy left off.
right.
So they have the next guy has their own agenda.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, if you look back, you're going back 30 years now. There's been a lot of changes. That guy got passed down a lot. So
one thing that changed, Bernie Sanders is still in there.
Yeah,
There's still quite a few. I was noticing. I was like, man, Bernie Sanders didn't change a bit.
No.
Yes.
His hair is a little bit shorter.
All right, we're gonna get to the next clip.
Okay.
We had Fox equipment would detect chemical agents. We also had other equipment that weren't part of the Fox. Is that correct? That would also detect chemical agents?
Yes, sir. You have the M8 alarm, you have the M256, you have M8 paper, you have the chemical agent monitor.
The most reliable, though, would be what's on your units? Or did others, in other words, the soldiers who weren't part of a Fox unit, it's chemical agents?
Yes, sir. With different varying. Yes.
We have soldiers who have said these alarms went off all the time. We even have the highest in command. What is your reaction to their comment that basically we discounted them? What's the logic behind discounting them, as far as you understand it? Thousands of alarms went off during the course of the war and afterwards.
My guess is that they were exposed to some low level of chemical.
Johnson, Major Johnson? I mean, my point is, when you hear superior officers basically say they went off all the time and we discounted them, what's your, and data that came from Fox equipment, from Fox units, which I would consider, what was your reaction?
My reaction, sir, was it was hard to believe that all the alarms, that the other detection equipment, like the gunnery sergeant mentioned, not gave false readings. Based on my knowledge of chemical, of NBCI, that I know that the equipment that we have is designed to detect, and that the soldiers that are in control of those detection pieces, I believe that when they said detections happen, they happen.
I was talking about myself in your position. I was thinking that if I was doing my job and I gave it to superior officers, basically, why I'm even there. I mean, what's the point? What's the point of having the equipment if we're not going to listen? What's the point of having the Fox units if we're not going to pay attention to it? What was your reaction? I mean, do you, I would think of it?
Yes, sir. My reaction during our detections was that everyone there believed when I informed the senior leadership there that we had detected chemicals. We moved the vehicle to a contamination-free area, and I was instructed to remove it. They looked at me, they looked at my soldiers, and when you looked at those soldiers, confident, and they knew that they had detected chemical agents. Everyone that system, the Fox, worked, and that thought that it worked properly. And there was no doubt in anybody's mind that I had mentioned earlier were actually found.
At what level did you have those detections?
At micro levels, very low level readings that were in the soil initially when we moved into the area. It's one of our tasks before we move into an area to check it. We start our up until the point where we actually go to a point survey where the vehicles are in a static position. They detected micro levels of mustard. And then when the actual container open and liquid was withdrawn and it was applied to the mobile mass spectrometer and the readings came up, they were readings on a scale of 8, where we identified that 4 bars mean blister agent present with some trace chemical agents.
Wow. I mean,
There it is, folks.
right there. I mean, and I tell you what, I really and truly, I like Major Johnson. It's like he did not hold back. Him and Abear, to me, did not hold back. He wasn't going to sit there and say anything else except for what the truth was. And I respected that.
You know, he said pick up micro. So clearly, terminology is very small amounts. It's not like they had to have a whole 5-gallon thing dumped on them. He said micro detections. It was there. They were picked up. That was what it was designed to do, folks. There it is, proof. This was back in 1990, for heaven's sakes. I mean, my good, 1991. I mean, think about it. We had the technology. You know, United States, number one, we had it. It's right there. And then our government to say, nah, it couldn't possibly have happened. You know, we would never expose our troops to that. Well, yeah, you know, just acknowledge
Not
it. Now
us.
it's been acknowledged.
We wouldn't do it.
know?
Wade?
No, I agree. it was funny listening to him talk about the Fox vehicle and the troops. And, you know, as troops and Joes, I love talking to like artillerymen, for instance. They go to the field, they train, you know, artillery, huge gun. But you talk to an artilleryman that's actually launched live rounds downrange at an enemy, you know, that makes them happy. You know, they're doing their job and they're sending rounds, you know, fire for effect, and we're gonna land it on their ass. You know, that makes an artilleryman really happy. So it's the same thing with these guys. They have a job, they have a mission. So if they're in a real world mission, not obviously, no, they don't want to get exposed, but if they're detecting it, they're doing their job. And then to tell for someone above them to tell them no, they didn't, or they were wrong. You know, that's just
and and that's what happens. So so Major Johnson, he said in August of 91, they found toxic chemical agents. There was 23 tests that they did. The British was involved in it. These testing results disappeared. The last that Major Johnson saw was that the British took them and never saw them again. So there's blister agents, choking agents, mustard agent, and also nuclear and biological presence of nerve agents. Sulfa mustard was also detected, but then the upper command denied the findings and they all disappeared.
All the upper command.
And that's what Major Johnson revealed, said they all disappeared. And then the committee was asking, well, you know, what happened to, you know, these findings? He says, I don't know. He says, I saw, you know, the British, whoever was testing from the, you know, from Great Britain, so I haven't seen them since. Yep. But upper command denying that anything happened.
Well,
so
I mean, we brought up.
And is there fault? They're worried about fault. I don't understand. They're worried about their jobs. You know, the upper command worried about them losing. You know, there's accountability here. That's
they worried about finding out who supplied it to them in the first place.
Well, of course.
Yeah. Well, that was said too. That was said too. Did you guys pick up on that?
In there.
That was said too. It was there was 55-gallon barrels there, and it was Iraq. It was Iraq, but ownership, but it said it was supplied by the U.S. They said.
Oh yeah, yeah.
There you go.
We did that. I want to get to the next video because we're kind of running a little bit short on time. Kind of went over, but I want to play the last one.
Sure. On this point, presumably, are spending many millions of dollars on this and other equipment, which is designed to pick up chemical and biological agents. Correct?
Yes, sir.
And what we are hearing is that presumably of an agent, it was discarded because all of the machinery in every single instance was faulty.
Sir, I would only say that on the day of our detection, every senior officer, senior person on the ground did not dispute our findings. They acknowledged
on the ground
that evidence of a functioning mass spectrometer that were produced from that, and the incident or the accident with the British soldier, that yes, in fact, it was a chemical.
But as the chairman has indicated, the higher up you went, these disclosures and this information was discarded. Chairman, by definition, every single instance of an alarm going off or detection from the Vox vehicles at the top was suggested that there was faulty equipment. What is the explanation officially given as to how come all of this equipment, which presumably cost us millions of dollars, which was designed to protect your lives and your comrades' lives, what is the official line being given as to how come all of this equipment is faulty, and have we thrown it all out? Or have we gone back to the manufacturers and demanded our money back, so to speak? All of this equipment was faulty. Does anyone have a thought on that?
Sir, speaking from my point of view, sir, the Fox vehicles that were when I arrived in Saudi Arabia, the Marines did not know what a Fox vehicle was. So because of, and neither did the commanders. So because of that, around and I showed and demonstrated what the capabilities and the mission of the Fox. As I was doing that, because it was such a strange looking vehicle to the Marines, I had tanks and machine gunners and Amtraks, Cobras that were part of our air when I want to blow up my Fox vehicle. So when I passed information at Jabber Airfield about the self up the chain of command, the Marines and the sailors in the immediate area donned their field protective mask going into full Mach level 4. I think because when we were passing it up the chain of command, one thing they told me to run a mass spectrometer, which meant they didn't know what they were talking about because the equipment on the Fox vehicle is a mass spectrometer, and they told me to run one. So they knew what the Fox vehicle was about because they had had a demonstration, but they weren't fully aware of what the capabilities of the Fox vehicles were at that time.
If I could, Mr. Fatah, I know you have to leave soon, and I'd like to make sure that you get to ask questions again.
Yeah,
I like that. I mean, I know, Linda, we just went over that as you were talking about it. I was like, man, that's the next clip. But it's true. These guys who went out there, they knew how to run the equipment. They knew what they were doing. So I do not understand how come they weren't trusted when they said there were chemical weapons out there. I feel like that we've been duped.
Because we
Well,
have.
they were experts in
there's-
that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, we all were fully aware of what we encountered. It was, as was just said, like Bernie Sanders said, why would the upper chain of command not acknowledge this? You know, and the soldiers, you know, you can see the smirk on one major's face. Well, you know, I mean, so they know it's nothing to you and I, the men and women that were there. We know that, but the American people who haven't seen this video clip or who weren't there only heard what the government wants them to hear. You know, I mean,
And I will put the whole thing up. So if people want to go back and really watch it, civilians, military, I'll put it on Facebook and leave it. I'm not going to put it up on YouTube or anything. I'm just going to put it up on Facebook because it's 3 hours long. And a lot of the audio breaks up because back in 1996, they didn't have technology like we do now. But I want to give y'all, you know, just a little bit of time and let's say our piece and we're going to go into the after show. Wade?
No, I think it's like I said, I've seen it before. It definitely brings up you know, refreshes memory. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who have not seen it. You know, it's good for education. You know, it kind of makes you think exactly where we're sitting today or how we got here and still being sick.
Right. Linda?
I think at this time they were concerned about the front line and everyone that was exposed. People like Major Airbear. They were, but I think it's bigger than what they realized. I don't think they realized, or maybe they knew and they were hoping they didn't know. But we had to take care of people like him that had the extreme exposure and were dying of it at that point. And now it's a lot bigger than what they realized.
No, I agree totally. John?
I agree with Linda wholeheartedly. I'm not sure our government really knew or understood how big of an issue this was. We were guinea pigs, and now we're all very slowly dying of various things. Now, this is just a factual matter because every single one of us, whether low levels or higher level, you're probably already long since gone. The low level that's going on in our systems, you know, we didn't know they knew, but they didn't know how it was going to affect us. And if you have a soldier out there and who was in the Gulf War, now you have a little bit better understanding of our government's. Well, it was not what we hear today. But their response back then, they were almost accepting it. Bernie Sanders was, but couldn't understand why it was being so pushed down. So now, it's folks, it's about this.
That's what it is.
It's about this.
And you know, I want to thank all y'all for coming on. Thank everybody for listening. Thank everybody who is going to be listening to this and watching this video. Go check it out on Facebook. Understand what you went through, what we went through, and then what we're passing on to kids so we don't do this again. It's 30 years later, 30 plus years later, and I just don't want history to repeat itself. So
And we're not alone. And we're all doing this together.
Yeah, all of us are in this together. And this is what this is about. As far as that goes, if anybody wants to come on to the program, y'all get a hold of me at Kevin Simon at goforsideeffects.com. You can get a hold of me on Messenger. And also go check out our Patreon page, you know, because we're about to go into the after show and we're going to have some really good times in the after show. And that's where we go in there and say whatever the heck we want to say. I want to thank all y'all for coming on, guys. I really appreciate it. This was our first time to do video. It will not be the last, but I will get better and better at doing this. And, you know, I want everybody to have a good night. Thank y'all for listening.